America's violent police culture is creating monsters. The "I can do anything I want and get away with it" Blue Lion Gang is one of the most severe public safety threats we face today. The latest victim of unaccountable cops is just an innocent child. But that didn't stop the Harris County Precinct 1 Constable's Office, led by elected Constable Alan Rosen, to delay the rescue of the abused child and hide the criminal conduct of his employees from the public. In this video, I'll expose the horrendous abuse perpetrated by Texas police officers and bust Constable Alan Rosen for the baloney he spewed during his Blue Lion press conference.
Can you tell us how many victims there were?
I only know of 2, but I'm sure there were probably more.
3 members of the Harris County Precinct 1 Constable's Office were engaged in continuous sexual abuse of a child. Sergeant Robert Braden Johnson, previously fired from the Sheriff's Office, committed suicide during a SWAT standoff in Liberty County, northeast of Houston. He was having an affair with Deputy Chonda Williams. Their police gang rapes of a young child had been occurring since 2020, and they were accompanied by dispatcher Christina McKay, who trafficked date-rape drugs for Sergeant Johnson. Elected Democrat Constable Alan Rosen had this to say on Friday, May 21st.
All right, so I'm going to give you a statement that we were dealing with. This has been a tough week for us here at Precinct 1.
Whoa, stop right there. From the very beginning, the cops are playing the victim. They're always the victim of whatever destructive situations they themselves create. A difficult week? For you? Seriously? How about a difficult year for the victims? A difficult and forever changed life for the young child? And you're going to whine about a tough week? Get over yourself.
As we have learned more about this case, we have realized the tragedy for all that was involved, all those that were involved.
Here you go again. It's certainly a tragedy for the victims, but to suggest it's a tragedy for the government criminals is disgusting. Your police officers chose to continually do evil things, and your office chose to cover up that evil over the weekend. There should be consequences even when cops do immoral crimes, and those consequences are not tragedy.
I want to give you a timeline. On the evening of Friday, May 14th, 2021, a direct supervisor addresses a dispatcher about her work performance. The dispatcher gives statements which implicates a sergeant in this office of committing sexual assault of a child.
Don't name any names, Rosen. Protect the Blue Lion. The dispatcher is Christina Michelle McKay, and she admitted the crimes to Lieutenant Shane Rigdon. Rigdon has since been sued in federal court for separate allegations of sexual abuse committed by Precinct 1 Constable's Office. Rigdon failed to immediately assist the child. Rigdon failed to arrest the perpetrators. Rigdon failed to immediately notify Child Protective Services. Rigdon failed to immediately notify the police agencies with primary jurisdiction over the locations of the government criminal activity. The sergeant is Robert Braden Johnson, and Precinct 1 chose to cover up what he did instead of immediately rescuing the victim.
The immediate supervisor then notifies our Internal Affairs Division that same night. The investigation begins.
Rosen claims the investigation started Friday night, but from the official complaints, it's obvious that the investigation did not start until Tuesday at 7 p.m. Once the Alvin Police Department knew of the alleged crimes, arrest warrants were issued in less than 48 hours. So then, what was Precinct 1 doing for 3 days? Do you think they were working to put their own friends away? Were they trying to find a way out? Or at least give the government criminals a few days head start to destroy evidence, get their stories straight, or flee? Leave a comment about what you think. And what do you think about pushing for a law that would prohibit police departments from investigating themselves?
On Monday morning, we proactively contact the Houston Police Department, our Internal Affairs Division does, about this allegation.
Proactively? Do people still believe words said during press conferences? So which is it? Was Precinct 1 too incompetent to determine where the child abuse had occurred? Or did they call the Houston Police Department in order to give their buddy an extra day?
Our Internal Affairs Division requested that HPD investigate this case. That's on Monday the 17th. We told HPD who to investigate initially to get a statement from the employee that made the initial outcry on Friday evening. On Tuesday afternoon, HPD interviews this dispatcher, who is an employee of ours, and realized the offense occurred in Alvin Police Department's jurisdiction. After interviewing the dispatcher, that same Tuesday, the 18th, HPD notifies CPS and then CPS contacts Alvin Police Department to open an investigation.
Why did Precinct 1 never notify CPS? And why didn't Precinct 1 immediately notify Alvin Police? Would the bureaucracy of a huge state agency buy even more time for the government criminals?
Tuesday, CPS and Alvin PD went to our employee's house, that's Sergeant Robert Johnson, and he was not home. I do not want to comment on any of the investigation that Alvin Police Department is doing. That's not my place. That's for them.
Wow, this guy is slick. Rather than being transparent, Rosen is hiding behind the other police agency, hiding negative information. Hiding the truth often works for government masters. They usually get away with it. But these crimes occurred in Brazoria County, where Extra Good Citizen and I focus much of our resources. We were able to obtain the details that Alan Rosen does not want you to know about. Sergeant Johnson, who was married, was having an affair with Deputy Chonda Williams since at least September 2020. Both performed sexual acts on children together on multiple occasions. The sexual assaults occurred in multiple locations in Brazoria County, including in Alvin and Pearland. Johnson would drug the girls with various substances, including wine and narcotics. Some of the date rape drugs specifically named were Valium, Soma, hydrocodone, wine, Xanax, and NyQuil. Dispatcher Christina McKay trafficked drugs to Sergeant Johnson for him to use during the sexual abuse of children. When Johnson admitted the affair and child abuse to his wife, he claimed that he gave a victim some pills so she wouldn't be aware. However, a forensic interview of the victim revealed that the child remembered being raped, including one assault that occurred the day before Christmas Eve. McKay detailed one instance of sexual assault of a child that occurred at the Pearland Holiday Express in August 2020. McKay said that she had become close friends with Sergeant Johnson. However, she also claimed that she did not report the child abuse because she feared Sergeant Johnson. Over the past 12 months, McKay had reserved a room at the hotel over 20 times. Dispatcher McKay was charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child, Texas Penal Code 22021A1A, which is a first-degree felony. She is being held in the Brazoria County Jail on $200,000 bond. Deputy Williams was charged with sexual assault of a child, Texas Penal Code 22011A2, which is a second-degree felony. Williams was released after posting a $200,000 bond with conditions of GPS monitoring and surrendering her passport. No statements by Williams were included in the arrest affidavits.
On Tuesday evening, our Chief Harrison, receives a phone call from Alvin Police Department, who is actively looking for Johnson. Wednesday morning, we get a dispatcher, the same dispatcher that made the outcry, say that she was with Sergeant Johnson in Shana Lakes in Liberty County. She claimed that she feared for her life and that he was suicidal. That same morning, Chief Harrison reached out to the sheriff of Liberty County and advised him of this situation, and that Johnson was potentially threatening to kill himself and this dispatcher, who is identified as Christina McKay. The Liberty County Sheriff's Office went to Chain Lakes, saw the vehicles, and kind of stayed back and waited to see what was going on. The vehicles left. They left in two separate vehicles. Liberty County Sheriff's Office attempted to pull over Sergeant Johnson in his private vehicle. The Liberty County Sheriff's Office attempt to pull him over ensued a vehicle pursuit. Johnson was led to a bridge where he was basically boxed in, and a SWAT scene ensued in Liberty County.
The Bluebonnet News of Liberty County reported that during the pursuit, Sergeant Johnson disregarded traffic signals on the bridge, which was under construction and limited to a single lane. An oncoming tractor-trailer was able to avoid a head-on collision. Rosen forgot to mention this blue line behavior, but perhaps police now think it's okay for them to disregard traffic safety laws.
I want you to know that Chief Harrison, our Internal Affairs Division, and myself were present at that scene. We spoke to Johnson. Chief Harrison spoke to Johnson for hours because it was important to us to try to prevent a suicide and to, most importantly, get every and any and all facts that we could relative to this case that we could get from him. We wanted to know everything. We wanted to know who the victims were. We wanted to know how long this has been going on. We wanted to know everything. Johnson confessed to everything that he had done, and he implicated two other employees at this office, Dispatcher Christina McKay and Deputy Chanda Williams. This confession was important to us. We worked hours, not only to hopefully avoid a suicide, but it was more important to us that we identify, again, all victims and perpetrators of this horrific case.
He must be the ultimate spin master. What a pompous cop, acting as if working for hours talking to Johnson was the key to justice. The reality is that the Alvin police already had enough evidence to establish probable cause. The reality is that Precinct 1 delayed the investigation for days. Days before the standoff, Dispatcher McKay had already implicated the three employees. The day before the shooting, McKay also admitted to Alvin officers what had happened. Johnson confessed to his wife the day before the standoff, and she had already provided a written statement to Alvin police with those details. And at the same time as the standoff, Alvin police were interviewing one of the victims. Real police agencies had already done the real work. And this is a good example of why we should not have bloated, out-of-control constable offices in Texas. Rosen may be an awesome politician, but prior to becoming constable, he had less than 3.5 years experience as a full-time police officer. Did the 8-hour sex crime sexual harassment training held at Precinct 1 the day before the standoff make them experts all of a sudden?
For full transparency, the two other employees I've told you about have been terminated, charged, and have been arrested. That is Chanda Williams and Christina McKay. In the current climate, the public has asked for transparency. I believe in this wholeheartedly. Transparency, proactive efforts, and accountability.
Wholeheartedly believes in transparency and accountability, he says, but tells only the convenient parts of the story. Be sure to subscribe to Justin Pulliam and enable all notifications, because my next Precinct 1 video will expose Rosen's actions regarding accountability.
Johnson was terminated from the Harris County Sheriff's Office before he joined us. He received a general discharge There was a psychological evaluation done on him prior to him joining us that showed no maladaptive behavioral issues. There was no indications of any problems in his background until now.
I thought we were doing full transparency about Johnson and his record. Rosen failed to explain that Johnson was reprimanded by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement in 2014 for failing to complete required trainings. His training history should have been reviewed during the hiring process, but Precinct 1 hired Johnson and kept him on even though he failed to follow the law. Is it second chances, third, fourth, fifth chances? Johnson's training record claims that he completed 32 hours of training on September 2nd, 2013, just a few days after joining Precinct 1. There's only 24 hours in my day, guys. While the training may be treated as a joke by the police, failure to play the training game is a red flag. Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office hired Chadwick McRae after he received a training reprimand from the state. McRae would go on to shoot and kill Deputy Caleb Rule. Government masters must be held accountable when they continue to hire and employ cops with dirty records. Also, general discharge is not a good thing. Honorable discharge is the routine separation. General discharge means that there was either a job performance problem or the separation was related to a disciplinary investigation. Of course, Master Rosen didn't care to explain this during his fully transparent press conference.
We went through layers of background and interviews with people that knew and worked with him at the Sheriff's Office. And he performed his law enforcement duties for 8 years here. So with that, that's really all I can kind of say about this. This has been a tragic week for us. I pray for these victims. We have been in contact with his family. We have been in contact with everybody, and I want to personally, from the bottom of my heart, thank all the members of law enforcement, from Texas Rangers to DPS, to the Liberty County Sheriff's Office, to Alvin Police Department, to CPS, that helped bring a very complex case to a conclusion. And I got to tell you, this was done very quickly. This case basically started Monday.
Wait, what? Did he just let it slip that the case started on Monday? Well, it was really Tuesday. But earlier in the press conference, didn't he say that it started Friday night with his office investigating it? Oops, I guess he strayed away from the prepared lie statement. So again, Constable Rosen, what was your office doing over the weekend instead of immediately reporting the child abuse and rescuing the victims?
The immediate supervisor then notifies our Internal Affairs Division that same night. The investigation begins. This case basically started Monday, and there's a conclusion on a Friday, and everybody's been arrested and everything's been dealt with. So I want to thank those law enforcement partners for being diligent, caring, and it's just been a tragic week for us. Nobody saw this coming.
Nobody saw it coming except for your own officers who covered it up for months?
How long has the officer been with the department?
I don't know exactly, but I believe maybe 2 years, maybe.
About that. Yes.
And the dispatcher?
Probably shorter than that, maybe a year.
And you got wind of this again on Friday?
Yes, Friday, late in the afternoon.
So, again, the dispatcher comes forward and says...
She had performance problems, and so we pulled her in to find out what her performance problems was, what was going on in her life.
I'm sorry, you were saying?
So we pulled her in because there were starting to see some performance problems with her. And we wanted to find out what was going on in her life, what was happening. And so that's when we started learning, and it took a while, it took hours, to find out the layers of things that she was going through, only for her to make this outcry that there was this problem.
So this conversation was on Friday night?
Yes. Friday, late evening.
Friday evening, and that's when
Yeah.
it came to light what was going on with...
there was an allegation that this was going on.
Right.
And so that's when we started investigating it.
What happened with Sergeant Johnson on Saturday and Sunday? Did he still work his normal shifts? Did you
We had no reason to do anything until we actually find out what we have. When you have an outcry, I mean, initially it seemed like a love triangle thing, and somebody was unhappy with somebody. So it always takes a minute or two to kind of get to the background of what we need to do and what actions we need to take.
That's an odd statement. I watch the cops all the time. They are very quick to come out with the handcuffs and haul people to jail. In this situation, the safety of specific children was in danger, yet the police chose to let the government criminal remain at large. This decision eventually led to a major SWAT standoff, and things could have been even worse. It's a miracle no one else was hurt because of this cover-up attempt. And that leads into the actions of the government club in general. There isn't real justice in Texas. It's the government versus the public. Another thing I've realized by cop watching is the police often stack charges. That's when they charge the member of the public with any and every charge that might apply. You can beat the rap, but you can't beat the ride. See what sticks. The Precinct 1 cops likely committed numerous violations each, including drug crimes and failure to report child abuse. They should be brought to justice for all of their government criminal conduct, but each faces only a single charge, another example of government club privilege. In Brazoria County specifically, John Gray and I are targeted for engaging in constitutionally protected activity. The Brazoria County District Attorney Office attacked John with a bogus charge for filming the Angleton police. The DA's chief investigator, E.J. King Jr., is utilizing public resources to come after YouTubers. Meanwhile, cops are committing atrocious crimes in Brazoria County, and the DA still has not convicted Hilario Hernandez, who, while he was a Houston police officer, shot and killed his wife 2 years ago. The DA's office blamed COVID for that cop's prosecution dragging on. Should police and government employees get away with crimes and abuse, or should they be investigated and tried exactly the same way everyone else would be? And should government employees be wasting your tax dollars to target YouTubers who they politically disagree with?
He never showed up for work all this week. He was not at work at all this week.
Did he work the weekend?
He may have worked his regular shift. I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday. Sunday.
Okay.
Yes.
So the allegations have come to light.
Yes.
He continues to work.
Yes.
As you continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You indicated that there was no issues at the time from his firing back in 2013.
That's
right?
correct.
He was hired 6 months later.
Yes.
When were you actually aware that he had been fired from Harris County Sheriff's Office before the hiring?
I'm notified of that. I'm a second chance guy. There's a big difference, from in morality versus criminality.
Sadly, there is a big difference between morality and man-made statutes. When statutes punish conduct that is not immoral, it's tyranny. And when government hires and promotes immorality, it becomes a corrupted institution requiring urgent reform. How disgusting for a so-called authority figure to stand on stage and excuse immoral behavior.
The allegation that was made against him was he had an inappropriate relationship with somebody that was off duty, two consenting adults that had an inappropriate relationship. That's what happened. And so there was a lot of people that knew this individual. There's a lot of people that spoke very highly of him as a police officer. And it's pretty apparent that everybody around this guy had no idea that he was a pedophile. No idea. Not his wife, not his friends, not his co-workers, nobody.
Nobody except for his friends and co-workers who worked for you at Precinct 1. And imagine that. You saved him from accountability for his inappropriate relationship at the sheriff's office, and then he did something even worse while working for you. There must be consequences for bad behavior, even for government employees.
And I got to tell you something. It hadn't been reported appropriately, but Precinct 1 has been involved in every facet of this case. Every facet. We referred it to HPD. We've worked with Alvin. Chief Harrison and I in our internal affairs division was at the scene when he committed suicide. I can tell you that Chief Harrison was the only person that Johnson would speak to. He's the only person. Nobody else could talk to him. And he got a full and complete confession from him, which then, of course, implicated other employees. And so, while this is a terrible, terrible, tragic ending, I am happy that we know who was involved. I am happy to know who the victims are. And I can tell you unequivocally, this agency is going to stand by those victims.
Is there any images that were chronicled of any children?
That's I can't answer that because we didn't do the investigation. I can't, anything that deals with the actual investigation, we weren't involved with. We were just helpful in getting a confession. We were helpful in providing access to the others that were implicated, and we were helpful in gathering intelligence of the whereabouts of these people so that the agency that was going to investigate it would actually go and be able to interview them and talk to them.
The day before the suicide, Rosen tweeted that police did everything possible to achieve a peaceful and safe result. But did they really? Or did they put politics and the Blue Lion first? The constable claimed he couldn't comment on anything that might have led up to this. Spinning a story about a victim cop would be better than the true story about morally corrupt cops. Uncovering government secrets and cutting through government masters baloney is time-consuming and expensive. If you like to know the rest of the story, instead of only what master wants you to think, please consider sending me a donation of $5, $20, or more. And please like this video and share it with others so they can learn the truth. Thank you for watching, and always record the police.